Okay, so right now what I'm doing is basically clearing out all the space to get the new, well not new, but get the old intake back and plugged in and hooked up to the intake ports. So I know obviously this plug here and this plug here will both need to go back into the intake. And I have pretty much just the wires disconnected that will be attaching onto the other parts, like the throttle body and the idle control valve and whatnot unplugged. So I have a relatively open space here for the intake to kind of be placed back down in here. I'm gonna take off these nuts. I put them back on, just the studs. That way I would know I'm not gonna lose them and make sure they go back in the right spot. Again, this is the bottom nut that keeps the bottom of the intake secured. And just FYI, this plug is actually not used. It is for, I believe it's an EGR valve, which the MS45 on my vehicle didn't come with. So this is just gonna remain unplugged, I'm pretty sure. So if you're wondering and you're doing this conversion, I believe this is the one that's missing. So this is the extra plug, you don't need it, so you don't have to worry about it. So here we go. It is arguably better to actually wait to put this wiring harness back in, but this is how I'm doing it. It's great if you have a second pair of hands so someone can kind of push this to the right so none of the cables and wires get caught. But just a little recap. This one tube will be connecting to this tube right here. This tube on the intake connects back to this line here. There is another, where is it? Right down here. Just kind of past where you can see all the way down here. That one that I'm wiggling will connect back up to, where is it? Oh, right here. This guy. And then there will be 3 more connections you'll have to make. Or is it only, yes, 2 more connections. This one that goes back onto the intake piece, and this one that goes all the way back to the brake booster. I might be forgetting one. I don't think so though. I believe it's just this one, that one down there, this one and that one. So this makes 3, 4, and 5 to go back into here. Alright, so I've been going crazy trying to look for the missing fuel injector and I just spotted it. I don't know, right here on the friggin', yeah. I wonder I could find it. Anyways, here it is. Just cleaned out the entire garage, which is not a bad thing, but still, I'm glad I found it. Alright, so what I've kind of done here is positioned the injector harness and fuel rail in a way that I know will generally go back in once the actual intake manifold is back on and everything's connected. So I just essentially tucked back the fuel rail line and the wire to the injector harness. Laid them like this, and that's generally where they're going to be laying once we're all ready to go. Alright, so now that I know that everything is seated in place pretty good, see that thick line going this way? That is the ground to the alternator here that connects right there. I needed to make sure that the bolt right in here would go through the bottom of the intake because that's what secures it down. And I kind of needed to wrestle with this a bit to make sure that the ground wire was on top of it and not underneath. But it really feels a lot like a rat's nest in here, honestly, because there's just so many wires kind of tucked into the same spots. But I believe everything is kind of in line now. I made sure nothing was really blocking here. Made sure the fuel rail injector harness were going to the right spots as well. So we should be pretty much good to go. Yeah, so the next thing I'm gonna do is connect that plug to that piece. And here we go. So I kind of forgot to mention, but before I put this in here, it honestly took a lot of manhandling to get this all in here. But I did snake the ground back through the intake manifold. So it kind of just goes like that and reconnects to this bolt. Careful, these tend to break really easily. I'm amazed mine's still on, and because I just said that, it's probably gonna break. Anyway, I got all the bolts in. The one back here is really tricky to honestly fit your hand into without dropping. It's just so far back there. So just be careful, because it's not going to be a pleasant experience getting that back out if you drop it back there somewhere and it doesn't fall to the ground. So I just reconnected the second tube here, and then the only ones I have left are this one right here, which I could probably literally do. Just to snap it back in. Then this one goes back onto the intake tube, and this one plugs back in right here. I'm gonna start making sure all these plugs, fit into the right spots and that I'm not missing any. I'm going to also remove the bolts. I put them back here just so I made sure they're going back into the right place. On the intake manifold, and then the idle control valve and the plugs associated with those. So we are so close. I'm getting really excited. But I have to be careful not to make any big mistakes that'll set me back. And then once I have everything plugged in and I'm sure everything's aligned right, I'll put the fuel rail and that harness back in, and I'll also get this in place. It goes where this plug is. You just have to remove it with a Allen key. The Torx bit will probably work too, but it's really kind of deep. So anything that's, slender, reach down that far, I'll probably do the trick. Wow, this throttle body was really, really dirty until I sprayed it with some cleaner. How good that works. Pretty amazing. We're getting this throttle body back on. Maybe I should have done this beforehand, because this bolt is really tricky to get to. The other three are... Let's get this thing on. Alright, so I screwed the throttle body in. It is now tight. And then plugged in this D-shaped plug. And then I put in the idle control valve. It has to kind of fit over that, that rubber ring, or it has to go inside it. It was a little challenging at first, but once I got the right angle, I kind of went down first and then up. That seemed to kind of do the trick. I'm just going to screw that in. This loose screw is to hold the wiring harness on, and there's another one like that right on the other side of that here, right there. Alright, now that the idle control valve is back in, I can plug in this little plug into the side. resisting. Goes. Decided to pop that one back in. This was disconnected, so I replugged that in. This clip will go back on. This way. For whatever reason, it wants to be curled that way. Tightened all the bolts, so the harness is back on tight, not going anywhere anytime soon. And then we will get the diesel valve plug in and the rest of the intake. So I can plug this guy in. And I believe at that point I'll be done with the plugs, except for this one up here. What the heck is it? I really don't remember. All right, diesel valve is back in. So this will pop in for me. Go, nice and secure. We're making good progress. So just a little bit of hardware info. The nuts, sorry, the screws, bolts that hold the fuel rail on, these four, are the same size as the threads that will be holding your new spark plugs, or sorry, coil packs in. I always get those confused. Spark plugs, coil packs, coil plugs, whatever. All kind of the same thing. But that is also the same size as your intake bolts. These are all the same size. I should say the same pitch and all that. So I'm probably going to run to the hardware store and grab a few of these, because this is pretty much the correct size to hold down the coil pack, coil plug. Pretty much exactly, actually. So that makes things easier, just for FYI. Okay, so I've tightened the fuel rail, I've gotten the little retaining clips on all of the injectors, and fuel rail, sorry, the fuel injector harness is now lined up. So I'm going to go ahead and push it down. As long as your clips are attached, they will self-clip over the injector. Yes. Ah, it's so nice to be back in there. That's really nice. Oh man. Is this thing really upside down like that? Apparently this thing wants to be twisted like this to be plugged in. That's fine. Okay, the Allen key was either stripping or just not the right size. So I'm using a T30, and it seems to be working so far. That was very stressful, but I think I might have actually found a solution. I hammered this in. Now I'm turning. Okay, once again. All right, so I don't even know if this was a screw. I mean, it absolutely looked like a hex shape, you know, Allen key shape. But apparently there's no threads, and therefore it really wasn't something that was going to be threaded out at all. But before I was pushing on this tab, so maybe this isn't a screw at all. You really just push down on this tab and pull up, and that's it. Either way, I punched through it. Hopefully there isn't much debris down there, even though it is super, super dirty. I really don't know. Either way, it's out. The new one's going in. So there we go. You should probably clean yours off a lot more than I am right now, but here we go. New plug is in. Snap. Ugh. All right. Last connection. Boom. Done.